Today, Becky Keene and Jen Pitt will be our presenters. Becky is a Sage 500 Solutions Architect. She has been with RKL for 7 years and has been working with Sage 500 software for over 20 years. So I think many of you know who she is. She's also an active CPA, so you can talk boring taxes with her still a little bit. Jen is a Sage 500 Solution Architect, and she also works with Sage X3. So for any of you considering migration, Jen can be a great resource for questions on that. Jen has been with RKL for over 5 years, and prior to RKL, Jen spent 7 years at Sage as an applications analyst, and Jen specializes in process improvements. Also, don't forget, your RKL account reps are Gia Lane on the East Coast, Mike Scher on the West Coast. Please don't hesitate to contact them should you have any questions regarding your Sage solution. So without delay, let's get started.
Okay, this is Becky Keene. Yes, I'm going to do most of the talking today. Jennifer is here to help me out. Jennifer did our last webinar, which was the data porter training, and did a great job of it. So I'm hoping to live up to hers. Maybe not quite as prepared as she was, but I'll do my best. And she can also do things like watch the chat to see if questions need to be answered. It's also her job to speak up and tell me if I start getting nervous and racing through, which I might very well do at different points. So on to, oops. Okay, sorry guys, there we go. getting the technology figured out here. So our topics today, yes, we do these year-end webinars, and usually 1099s are mentioned a bit. This year, 1099s are going to be our main hot topic. That's because things have changed in that area. We will try to cover some other areas at the end, and for those of you who are doing this as a repeat from prior years, hopefully it'll not be just a refresher. Maybe we can come up with some new things for you to hear about. Okay, so vendor 1099s changed for 2020. This is the first major change in years. 1099 NEC, or non-employee compensation, has been moved, is the new form, and it is replacing the miscellaneous box 7 non-employee compensation. Technically, it's not new. This was actually used back in 1982, but then they went and combined it with the 1099 miscellaneous. Quick review, what is non-employee compensation? Non-employee compensations are services performed by someone who is not your employee, including parts and materials. Also, things like cash payments to fishermen. And you can't sneak these over to 1099 box 3, other income, because that's actually specifically for Indian gaming profits, medical studies, all kinds of things like that. So why do we have a new form? Well, a couple of years ago, the law changed so that they require this particular item, non-employee compensation, to be reported to the IRS by January 31st. There was good reason for this. It helps cut down on the number of phony 1040 individual tax returns being filed, which are a headache both for the IRS and for taxpayers. But there was a lot of confusion because you have one box that could make a form due a different date than it would be otherwise. So slow wheels at the IRS. After 2 years, they finally got this spread out. So what are we going to do now? Okay, 1099 software changes. I'm assuming most of you on this call know about the 1099 NEC, but then there's the question of what are we going to do about it in our software? So first I'm going to cover supported versions, as in Sage supports them, but I will also be covering unsupported versions. We've got solutions. We'll be taking care of you. So if you are on a supported version, that would be version 2017 or later. Sage will be releasing within the next couple of weeks an update for you. The update, something that you can download from the web. Then you're going to have to install it. And put it on. Now they've been working on this for several months now. It just takes a while for all the pieces to come together. It's not really that Sage is trying to keep you on pins and needles for the great reveal, but they have to get it all worked out. They have to work with Atrix to get it tested. So it'll be finally coming out. There will be a server portion that needs to go onto your SQL server. And then there will be a client portion that will have to be run on any client's workstations for any users that use 1099s. And that doesn't mean just the people who are printing 1099s. That would be your AP people, your PO people, anybody who has access to that. You'll want to put it on. Pretty straightforward. Well, once it's all done. So once it's all done, what will it actually do? What is getting done? The first thing, you can see the sample there, is it's going to go back into the database and add a new form and give it a number because it works with numbers in the back end. It's going to be a new form, NEC, and it's going to have a new box 1 available. There'll also be like whatever box it is for the withholding tax if anybody has to do that. So that if you go in to set up 1099 boxes, you'll be able to see that form in that box. But that is really just the first step. It also had to go through every form and area of processing that refers to 1099s. This would be maintain vendors. This would be purchase orders. This would be vouchers payments, recurring vouchers, even the code for where they bring in, where you can bring in a beginning balance for 1099s. So after they went through all of that code, which, where the good developers were, there were probably minimal changes because they didn't go in hard code things. So it happened automatically. But not all cases. They assume that there could be a new form. Okay, so that's why we have to have the client side. There are going to be a few of those that have to be updated. Then the last issue, besides having it so that you can see this new box, assign this new box, is there is all this data you already have that says 1099 miscellaneous box 7. And people tend to have a whole ton of it. It is definitely the most commonly used 1099 form. So what we're hoping that Sage is going to do, we don't have the code in hand, but what we're expecting, and if not, RKL is working on solution, is to actually go into the back end and find all of those places that really should say 1099 NEC box 1. And it's a one-to-one relationship with a little exception. So we can go through, and if your vendor default is non-employee compensation, we put in 1099 NEC box 1. If your payments were made in 2020, then those would need to be updated to 1099 NEC. The open vouchers, because if they're open, then they would obviously be paid in 2020 or 2021. Now, if you have a crazy situation where there was a vendor with a voucher in 2019 and partial payment in 2019 and partial payment in 2020, well, make sure that the payments are fixed, but that's about it. So, like I say, we hope that's in the Sage. If not, we've been writing code to cover it at RKL. I've said Atrix a few times. For those of you who are on current versions, you're probably going, oh yeah, Atrix. For those who are not on the most current versions, starting with Service Pack to 2014 and with 2016 on, Sage gave up on trying to keep 500 updated every year for 1099s and just set up so they use an online service. When you go to process your 1099, instead of printing them locally, there's a wizard interface that sends all your data up into the cloud at this place called Atrix. And it has, it does a lot more because it validates it. It gives you notices that, the state is missing, that the Social Security number or taxpayer identification number is 7 digits instead of 9. So it's really a nice service. And besides that, they can, for a fee, obviously, print your 1099s and mail them to the vendors. You get copies of everything also, and sending a filing with the IRS electronically. I mean, even if you've only got 10 of them, they're still going to do it all electronically. It's nice. I find that it's kind of hard to imagine that at the prices that they charge, it's a minimum of about $25 and like $250 per form to do everything start to finish. You compare that to the time you spend having someone go to the office supply store, go buy the 1099 miscellaneous, go, oh crap, no, you were supposed to have 1099 NEC. Get back with the right forms, get them put into the printer, stuff the envelopes, stamps on the envelopes. It's kind of hard to imagine. I mean, Atrix has big machines, and they've got everything lined up, and it's actually a pretty darn good deal. I think most people who have started down that path have gone with it. So that's supported versions. There's also unsupported versions. So if you're on 2016 and prior, RKL is finishing testing on doing the same things that Sage would be doing for the later version, but making it available for 2016, for 2014. I'm not sure how far back we're going to go. It depends on whether we have requests, but it's kind of the same code, so we can go ahead and do that. I'll take a breath here.
So there's a question.
Yes.
Is there going to be an update to the Atrix integration as part of this?
Good question. I don't have the answer. My guesstimate is that there will not be, because the Atrix part of it is just to feed a file up. Whether that file says NEC or miscellaneous shouldn't change much of anything. We're assuming until we see it all and are totally sure. But my impression has been that no, it's going to be your SQL client, your SQL server, and your client. So, good question though. I thought about that, but I never got it in there. So anyhow, so RKL is working on doing the same thing. We won't go through the steps again, but does that mean that you're going to be able to print an e-file directly from Sage if you get your RKL updates to this? The updates so you have Form 1099, NEC, and Box 1. No, we're not going to be spending time trying to create the reports to print out, and we are certainly not going to work on getting the electronic filing file created. We're making sure that you can appropriately track the information in Sage. From there, we can say, hey, there's all of these online services. Atrix, you don't have to use the interface. You can actually log into Atrix website and work that way. So we're saying that just go ahead and pull the information out in Excel and use the online services to do some of them I think do allow for local printing, but I'm not sure why you would at that point. But it'll be download to Excel and a basic push up to the online services. Now I'll show you some of those later. Now there are going to be some of you that just go, I don't want to deal with the update at this point. Maybe January, February, you're doing an upgrade, dealing with it other ways. Well, let's go back to, you brought your data down in Excel. At that point, you can manipulate it. You just take that file and make sure that you change the lines that say 1099 any miscellaneous box 7 to 1099 NEC. Should just go right through. The other thing is, if you don't have a lot of 1099s and aren't too particular, there's an IRS website where you can order, I think you can order up to like 100, but order 5 or 10 1099 forms. They don't charge you anything. They don't even charge you for mailing them. They're the old 4-part forms. You can take a pen, you can fill them out. In fact, I would recommend, even for people who are doing 1099 through the services, order yourself a few of these. Then if you have to do a correction on February 1, yeah, you can work with these services to do a correction. But that's automation is efficient when you have a lot of data. If you're doing one 1099 form, it's a pain. So you can always have those freebies set aside. Okay. I'll be going, this information, besides being on here, we are working on posting a blog that covers the detail I just talked about that's not on the slide, about the 1099 changes and what you can get from RKL. Okay, Brett, are there any questions? Okay. So those are the heavy duty areas of the 1099s, our big change. So let's talk about deadlines. This year, those 1099 NECs, they're all due February 1st because January 31st is a Sunday, so we get an extra freebie day. The IRS deadlines for other 1099 forms, anything on 1099 miscellaneous now is not due until March 1st with the IRS by paper or March 31st electronically. Now, when I say it's due with the IRS plus sending to the vendor by February 1st, Atrix and the online services will cut it off, I believe, 3 business days in advance. So you're going to want this taken care of before the weekend of February 1st. Because they can't, I think they will let you submit, but you may or may not, they may or may not get it off to the IRS in time if you go send them something on February 1. And the penalties per form are $50 for a form that goes to the IRS and is late but within 30 days. Then it goes up to like 100, and then this per form, it can go up to $550 per form for negligence, neglecting to file returns. So they're pretty serious. Now, like everything with the IRS, there are extension forms. You can fill out something. It'll give you 30 days. It's not going to give you 6 months. It gives you 30 days. And you also have to check a box that says there was a fire, there was a death, there was a serious illness. You can try for the extension form. I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, last thing, just a little bit, that this was the year that the IRS was saying that they were going to change so that it's required that you do file 1099s electronically if there were over 100 returns. They decided not to implement that. They're still going with 250. But if you're using any of the services, they're going to do it electronically. You don't even have to think particularly about that. Okay, and as I'm showing this within deadlines, I'm probably preaching to the choir. The panic calls that come in on February 1 aren't the same folks who are going to be nice enough to think ahead and sign up for a webinar and make sure they know where these things are going. So I really do appreciate people who get on the webinar, get prepared, and help me keep my stress level down in January. So thank you to the choir here. Okay.
So I'll just add in one thing there. It does get busy that time of year with 1099 calls, both here at RKL and at Atrix. So yeah, I'll just preach that once more. If you can get them done sooner than later, that would be great.
Oh, these services tend to give early bird discounts that go through about the end of the month. If you really want to knock it off, get it done, and settle back. Thank you. Okay, reviewing payments. One of the other things with 1099 processing is always trying to take that last look and making sure that what you have marked as 1099s is correct, complete, and what you need. It can be corrected in the edit voucher 1099 form. For something like where vendor's 1099 status changed mid-year. I could show you that one real quick. There's a 1099 beginning balances that will take a flat file and upload. If you have 1099s from another system. On the other hand, if you're just going to be downloading it in Excel, you can add it through Excel. And there's standard reports and explorers, but the standard reports and explorers I find a little limiting. They don't really give you is something missing? So RKL does have, and I think probably most of you have it on your systems by now, a explorer we call the 1099 master that will show summaries of columns of all payments marked as 1099, all from the last 3 years, whatever the current year is, the previous year and the year before that. It'll show whether there's a 1099 default on the vendor, taxpayers, all of that information is there. So it gives you a chance to review. So if you're looking for something like that, these have gotten bigger for you, go ahead and call support and they'll be happy to get it out to you and help you install it. Okay, credit cards. Why am I talking 1099s and credit cards? Because if you're really tired of this whole 1099 thing, what you want to do is convince all your vendors that you'd have to do 1099 with to let you pay them by credit cards. Because if you don't write a check and you just give them a credit card number, you don't actually report that on a vendor 1099. It's the credit card processing company that's going to report it on their 1099K payment card. So if you did include the 1099, if you send a 1099 to your guy who comes and cleans the cars or whatever, but you put it on a credit card, that would be bad. he'd get 1099 for the same dollar amounts duplicated. Version 2019, they have a ability to set up a pay a vendor by credit card. It's basically you set up a vendor, you mark it as this vendor is my credit card vendor, and then when you're processing as a payment in manual checks, it will actually just move the liability over to the credit card vendor for you to cut it back based on those later. If you aren't on 2019, what a lot of people do is just set up a credit card bank account. You set up this bank account, it's liability GL instead of a cash GL. When you go to pay it, you're not going to cut a check. It's more like a wire. You pick this as your quote bank. Then the amount hits the liability account. You can even set it up with a bank reconciliation. That's kind of the 30-second overview. It doesn't take a lot of effort to set up. But if you are interested, just check with support. They've got a couple variations in documentation for taking care of these things.
And just one note that someone brought up about those switching over to credit cards to pay the vendors. Double check with the vendors and make sure that they don't charge a fee, or at least be aware that they may have a fee if you want to pay them by credit card. So thanks, Amy, for bringing that up.
Oh, good one. Yep. It still may be worth it, depends. Create 1099s. Resources list. These are just some of the places you can find information. Let me go ahead and show you some of these. Go back over here. Whoops, where'd it go? Sorry. So the RKL LLC side of the RKL Limited Liability Partnership, those are the CPA sides. They have done a really nice little log that explains, the tax perspective versus the software perspective of what are the changes for tax year 2020. So you can check that I got them all right. For the Atrix online processing, there is a website that is specific to filing from Sage 500 to Atrix. You even have a little demo of it. Very useful one. And it is currently showing prices. Now, I don't know if this is last year's or this year's pricing. I also know that they do the early bird discount, but it gives you an idea. Here's your real simple one. $239, everything is done. The IRS has, of course, good information, and I know where I'll go. Don't look at the IRS. Well, no, they write pretty darn good instructions, and they have also the ability, if you want to just print out a 1099 form and take a look at it. Nice PDF things, easy to deal with. I mentioned ordering online, so I gave a link to that. This page is super easy. You just come down here and say you can get up to 1,000 forms if you want. You probably want to order about 5. You just slide through the list. You find 1099, 1099 KLMNEC. You say, I want 5 of these. And you'll also want the 1096, which is the summary page. And they will send you forms that you can use to submit these things. You run to the bottom, you say add to cart, and order them. They'll show up within a week. Now, there are other IRS publications that if you want bedtime reading that's going to put you to sleep, here is the 162-page publication concerning formatting for electronic filing of forms. In depth, how to do it, it covers everything. And since these are just plain flat files, I've had to go through these and count the characters. It'll put you to sleep. And also there's the 1099 online filing services. I've gone ahead and listed some of the possible 1099 online services. I haven't checked them all out. There's eFile for Biz, 1099online.com, H&R Block, Intuit, Atrix you can do directly. But just Google 1099 online filing service. Now, I do suggest that if you are going to use these, you at least make sure that it's been around for a while, it's a legitimate company, because you are updating and name and vendor IDs and taxpayer IDs. So this is, working with TurboTax, H&R Block, Atrix is fine. I don't know anything about eFile for Biz, but if it's been around for a lot of years, you're probably just fine. So, okie dokie. Any more 1099 questions at this point?
So, yeah,
okay,
One came in, and I believe I know the answer to this. The question is, what if the payment method changed during the year? Do we exclude the credit card payment and send a 1099 only to the check payments? And I believe the answer is yes, because the CC payments would fall into the 1099K. That would be on the merchant to send out, but
correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we've done with the Explorer, and it kind of has to be individualized by each. Let me go back to that Explorer. Isn't pretty, but we'll get there. I'm going to show you the vendor 1099 master that we've set up. Very limited data here, but you can get the idea. What we can do is we have prior year payments in total and prior year payments that are marked as 1099. Since this is demo data, there's not much in there, so I have to kind of go to prior year, 2 years prior. But we've added extra columns in the past. We need to tweak them individually. So based on some way we have to put a column in here that says 1099s paid by, or 1099able but paid by credit card, so that you can separate those out. I don't think I have that in here. And we just have to know that this was done by a bank account, maybe with a GL that starts with 2 or is otherwise identified as a liability. So we can build that into the 1099 master so that you can review that without much extra effort. Say it just kind of has to be individual. How do we identify these for you? Okay, so that's the idea of this, where you have your vendor, your name, the taxpayer ID, the form and box, payment amounts, address information, vendor class, and things like that, so you can select which vendors you want to see. So if I were doing this year, I'd be looking, if I'm reviewing ahead of time, I'd be using the current columns. If I'm doing this in January, I'd have to use the prior columns, because it goes by just physical year 2019, 2020, and just kind of keeps rolling.
Does that have a payment bank account column on there?
I don't, but on the one I'm showing, but that's a very small addition. Yes, that's kind of what I was talking about. We could do it we can do columns for what what bank it was paid out of, or just yeah, we could summarize it by that. Yeah.
Okay.
That is definitely
And
something
you
we
mentioned,
can customize a little bit.
okay, and you mentioned that this would be something that they could reach out to the support team to ask for how these get installed, correct?
Yeah. If you don't have it already, or if you need yours adjusted to add credit card columns, because we didn't have those in the past, that's been kind of a new addition, just let us know. And it really doesn't, these little explorers, it doesn't matter what version you're on. You could be, version 7.3 that was retired in 2013, and we could, it's still, it's logic that has not changed in the system, so.
Okay. Okay, yep. And so there would be a fee with those Explorer views.
I'm sorry, what was?
There's a fee for those Explorer views.
Oh, yes.
Correct.
Yeah. There's where are we charging the equivalent of an hour or two for the basic Explorer plus a little bit for install. I mean, they're not, these are, the $500 to $1,000 items. They're not, $10,000 add-ins.
Correct.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
So yes, yeah. So I was going to say, yep, we're going to show up to some things where you might want to buy stuff from RKL, but I'm trying to make up with lots more things that here's how you can do it yourself, and you don't have to then be calling RKL. We'll have our work cut out for us in January. We aren't really looking for business. Okie dokie. Moving on from 1099 because we're already in 40 minutes into this thing. So I want to cover just a few other things. Here we go. So some of the things with closing, GL Fiscal Calendars. You will want to set up your new calendar from Setup Fiscal Calendars. It's just you get in there and you hit the Add Year button. How soon do you want to do this? Well, I usually say don't do it too far ahead of time, because as soon as you open something up, somebody is going to manage to get in there and post to this. I've seen people with fiscal years set up through 2030, and yeah, guess what? There's something in there for 2030. And then one of the things I thought about is that there were, let me go back to that slide. There are all these little columns in there. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay. This has been out for about 5 years now, I think, where you can individually lock AP, AR, cash management, inventory, manufacturing. It's not just that this is the current period. It's you can't post to AP or AR. Out of the box with this, what'll happen is if you create a new year, all of those are going to start out locked. Now, some people want that. Some people want to lock those future years, so you also don't have somebody accidentally typing in December 20th, 2021 when they meant December 20th, 2020. Yeah, it's going to happen. But some people don't. Whichever way you want, if that's not what's happening, that's going to be irritating. So what they have in every one of the modules, AP, AR, inventory, manufacturing, in the setup option screen, there is a checkbox. Do you want those new periods when you create a year to start out as locked or start out as unlocked? And if you start them out as unlocked, you can say all except the first one. So it saves a little effort. Another question that comes up is that when you're in purchase order, you don't have a lock on the purchase order. That's not one of the options. What happens is that for receipt of invoice, that's running from accounts payable. So once you lock AP, you're locking PO receipt of invoice. If you are in PO receipt of goods, that will be locked based on locking the inventory module. The only issue that comes up sometimes is if you don't have inventory, you don't have a good way. And I mean, there are people who do use purchasing, but don't use it for inventory strictly. You don't have a good way of locking receipt of goods, and that's probably one of the first ones you want to lock. If you have that issue, call support. We have definitely worked out a little trigger so that the PO receipt of goods would be closed at the same time as the receipt of invoice. And then you can kind of work around that little issue. Inventory management. There's also, you're going to need your new inventory calendar set up. It's pretty straightforward process. We have some users, though, particularly on older versions, when they go to kick this off, years ago they had this written so it double checked all your inventory history at the same time. Well, that can be tons of time. So I usually recommend create your inventory calendar off hours. It might just fly, or if you remember last year, it was okay. If it starts running and running and running and running, kill it, call us. We can get the inventory calendar created from the back end and just not even have to work through that. And of course, one of the other closing things, Sage Fixed Assets. There are always updates coming early in the year because of any changes to the IRS depreciation rules and the tax books. Even if you aren't using the tax books, it's worthwhile to upgrade your fixed asset system. It's a very easy update. You know, people don't have things customized, so it's just go slam it. And I really should change this to Premier Depreciation, but we'll leave it as fast for now. But the updates aren't cumulative. So if you wait 3 years and want to update, you're actually going to have to update 3 times, one after another. Okay. The other thing that comes up pretty big is physical inventories this time of year. Okay. Do you have a plan? When are you going to be doing it? Quite often on a weekend. If you're going to need us as backup or to call us, let us know. We can make sure we've got weekend coverage for you. Let me see, time-wise, I don't think I'm going to show too much of it, but this is one of the ones that if you haven't used it, it's a really good data porter application. You can do your freeze and send your count card information out to Excel, have it filled in Excel, somebody walking around the plant with maybe a small computer with just Excel on it. Doesn't even have to be live with Sage. Dropping in the counts, you can go back over and then just upload the counts. Pretty easy to do. Let me see time-wise. Okay. There are a lot of good reports. Yeah, we've got time. Let me spend just another half a minute showing you Explorers here. We will go in here. Pardon me. Just let me get over there real quick. Inventory management, activities, process physical inventory. Some of the little tricks that come up is after you've selected your count items, you're going to want to freeze the count items. You always want to do that absolutely as close as possible to when the actual count will start. because when it's doing the comparison, it always needs it's going on the assumption that anything you're entering, any activity was done after the count, not before the count. And then there's a little checkbox that everybody should be aware of, show frozen quantities. That means that when you go over to your enter counts, you can see what the quantities that they say are out there. And that's how you can do like the data porter. Let me see if I have one. I have one with 3 states. Okay, so show frozen quantity. This is how you can pull in all of your information with your frozen quantity. If you want to see it, you can send this all out to Excel. There are missing count cards, reconciliation reports, but in my mind, better than that. As of the last couple of releases, there are also pending physical count explorers. And we've had lots of people who've taken that and also added dollar amounts. So if you come into your pending physical count and you want to see everything that's in process and what the variance is, you can get it and include it with a little twist. You can include not just what the quantity variance is, but the dollar variance. So that you can say, I want to see just the lines where the variance in dollars is plus or minus $100 based on last unit cost, replacement cost, whatever is the most appropriate. So, so that's, yeah, summarized versions. Any questions on the physical? Nope. Yeah, that's more like call us if you think you're going to need us. Let us know in advance. Okay, end of the year is a time we also talk about disaster recovery plans. It's a good time to make sure you do have backup procedures, off-site backups regularly of everything, not just your Sage 500 database. Ransomware is running rampant. It's real. We've had lots of people get hit who have, run good, clean shops. I don't think we've had anybody lose a lot of Sage 500 data, but there's invariably some little server that they didn't think about. And, ransomware dollar requests, can be in the millions of dollars, and you send it out not knowing if you're going to get this fixed. No, you don't want to deal with that. Okay. Other things that come up near the end of the year are essentially hiding old data, pruning by hiding things. So it's a good idea to do things like inactivate unused GL accounts and customers and vendors and items. You can get reports and update them with Data Porter. And then you have to train the users to filter so that these things don't show and you don't have to look at them. There's also purging. There are Sage 500 purge processes. I found the ones like the purchase orders and AP run pretty well. Sales orders, inventory, maybe not so much. We can work with you on scripts and things like that to clean these up. And some of them are really super simple. Things like pick lists. You don't need pick lists after 30 days. Actually, probably don't need a pick list after 2 days. So you can even set up SQL jobs that will go through and get rid of all the pick lists older than that. There are a lot of work tables and things like that can be cleaned out when you're thinking about end of year cleanups. And it kind of depends. I mean, some places things slow down a bit at the end of the year and allow for these sorts of processes. If you're one of the places that goes crazy at the end of the year, put this on your notes to think about as an April project. So, and checking things like menus to make sure that you have everything, various other things that like security that can be reviewed. At this point, I think let me see, that's the last of them. So I'm just going to say time for Q&A. And if you don't have questions, I'm giving you back 5 minutes of your day.
You're good.
So the question was, when you say that Sage no longer creates the electronic file locally, that means we cannot print out of Sage.
No. What that means, if you are on a supported version of 2017 or later and do an update, I believe you will be able to print those out. Earlier versions, no. But then the electronic file, that's a specific IRS file that instead of printing things out to a printer and sending your red IRS copy, you send them basically a text document that's machine readable. That kind of electronic filing is not done within Sage. Instead, when you send your information out to Atrix, they create these electronic files and send them to the IRS. So it's purely the IRS filing that is not supported at all, even on a current version. You have to use Atrix to do that. I believe it's a very small fee.
Again, thank you, Jen. Thank you, Becky. And everyone have a happy holidays.
Thanks for helping organize, and thanks for helping out, Jen. Really appreciate it. Happy holidays.